K-Zone Baseball Development Podcast. Today we are sitting down with a man with an extremely improbable journey through professional baseball. This man has made appearances in the big leagues. He's pitched at every professional level, college ranks, indie ball, and I am excited to get into it with a friend of mine, Randy Wynne. So I'm here with Jimmy Keating, the founder of K-Zone Baseball Development.
To anybody out there chasing the dream, you're going to want to hear this one today. Randy's story makes no sense. I'm excited to have you guys hear this.
Randy Wynne, a big leaguer with the Cincinnati Reds, Tommy John surgery, 3 years in JUCO, NAIA stud. He went undrafted. He's also sold pretzels. Indie baller, and now he's still chucking it at 33 years old, a former teammate of mine. How is everything going with you, Randy?
Everything's going really well, man. I'm actually down here in Leon, Mexico. We're finishing up spring training, getting ready for the start of the season. So happy to be here with you guys.
Man, we're super excited to have you, and I think you're going to provide a lot of different insight and value for people that are in a changing landscape. And I think you might know just about everything about all the landscape.
You got to do something that every kid in the backyard dreams about doing. I myself used to emulate each lineup that I could memorize. I was a Braves fan, so I hit left-handed against the right-handed pitchers when Chipper Jones was up and right-handed when Andrew Jones was up. We all dreamed of being big leaguers, and you got to do that. Talk us through your major league debut.
My major league debut is, it's something I'll never forget. I got called up from Charlotte and kind of had a tough one with the plane. Ended up missing the first flight, got on the second one. Wasn't my fault, but ended up in Cincinnati for a Sunday day game. We're actually playing your Braves, your Atlanta Braves. This was 2023, so they were the reigning champions, and Acuna was the reigning MVP. And so they needed a starter for the game, but they had called up another AAA guy, so he was going to start the game, and I was kind of going to piggyback off of him. So around the third inning, he gets into some trouble, and they called down to the bullpen and go get Wynne hot. Now, I woke up at like 3 a.m. To get on the plane to get to Cincy, so not a whole lot of sleep. So I was thinking maybe they might give me a game before they put me in there, but me being green, I didn't know that I was only there for that day. But nevertheless, I end up warming up, and I'm dialed. Everything, I'm hitting everything right where I want it. All the shapes are beautiful. And then he gets out of the inning, and so then they call back down and they go, "Hey, Winnie's got the next inning." So now I've got time to think, and next warm-up pitches weren't so great. And I'm talking to the bullpen coach, and he goes, "Yeah, you got Harris, Acuna, and Albies." And I'm like, "Okay." And he skips over Harris and Albies and goes, "Acuna, no damage on slider." And in my head, I'm going, "So you're telling me the reigning MVP is the only guy with a hole?" But okay, whatever, fine. So I did this trick that I had done during spring training games when I had been pitching in the big leagues. And as I walked across the warning track, I remember thinking that the last time I faced guys in these unis was Little League. So let's just pretend they're Little Leaguers. And then I remember also thinking that I couldn't imagine like living out my childhood dream and being scared and stressed about it while I was doing it. Because for me, having been what I'd been through, it was all gravy for me anyway. So I couldn't imagine like living out that dream and being stressed and, worried about it. So I told myself, I'm going to have as much fun as humanly possible, even if we give up like 9 straight solo shots or something, like let's just try to have as much fun as humanly possible. That was something I had done in spring training. So I did that took that into my debut, and running through that bullpen door, I felt like every cell in my body was vibrating. Could not feel my feet hitting the ground. I must have looked silly, had a silly look on my face because the umpire checks my hand and he's smiling at me, like laughing at me, And then the actual debut, it felt like this crazy experience of zooming in and zooming out. I'd get on the rubber and see the rubber in the dirt. I'd put my cleat there, and it's like I was a horse with blinders on. The freest focus I'd ever felt in my entire life. Just knew what I had to do, just locked in. And then I'd get an out and be in between batters, and I'd zoom out. And I was lucky enough that Sunday day game, because it was a Braves game, there was a ton of Braves fans there. There was like over 40,000 people at my debut. So people all the way up to the lights, all the way around. So in between outs, I'm literally like going like, wow. And then I get the ball back and I look back at the dirt and it's like, zoop, like right back into focus. And so I ended up going 2.1. Didn't give up any runs, but I left a guy on base. And it was a 3-3 game. So kept us in it. And then unfortunately, the guy behind me got clipped by Matt Olson. So my run scores, because it was tied, we ended up losing that day. So I ended up with a loss and a run out of my ERA. But not a single regret, though. Still the best thing that's ever happened to me. So,
man, that's awesome. Hearing, like, I'm living out my childhood dream. I think a lot of times when we watch pro ball, we forget about that nobody knew when they were 9 years old, like, hey, I'm going to get comfortable in Major League Baseball. And I think, you got to experience something that if you look at the percentages, almost nobody does. And that's one of the beautiful things about pitching, is that you're always 60 feet and 6 inches away. You toe the rubber regardless of whether you're at an American Legion game or you're facing the Braves on a Sunday day game and there's people sitting right underneath the row of lights. So it's really cool to hear that zoom in, zoom out, because, you have to have that awareness of, okay, this is actually happening right now, but also like slider, glove side, it has to happen too.
That's right.
Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, you were 30 years old at your MLB debut, correct?
You're right.
Right. Yep. For those that are not familiar with professional baseball, that is considered old. Certainly to make your professional debut. And at that time, I actually went to the Friday game. So Friday, they played on Saturday, and then you made your debut on Sunday. The Braves were in first place, and the Reds were in first place, or right in the hunt for first place. Like you said, 40,000 people, and you're making your MLB debut. I want to ask you about this moment. You may not even know I saw this. So, of course, a former teammate of mine, and we'll get into us being teammates maybe here in a second, has just made his Major League debut. And I think there's like 3 people I know that I can say are my friend. I have their contact that played in the big leagues. It's a big deal. So I'm trying to find that Sunday after church every single clip. And there is a clip of you. You're sitting right behind or right by the first base dugout, the Reds dugout, with your wife and your daughter. And there's no one there, seemingly, but the grounds crew, and you are soaking in every single second of that time there at Great American Ballpark. Will you talk about that moment for a second?
Oh, yeah, man. I haven't talked about that moment very much, at least publicly. But yeah, man, that's one of the most special moments of my life, too. Yeah, so my family, my wife and daughter, my son wasn't born yet. But my wife and daughter were living in Louisville, and we had gone on the road trip to Charlotte. So when I got called up, they were only an hour drive from Cincy. So they got to come. It was such a quick turnaround, like Saturday to Sunday, that like my parents and I had a cousin that was like desperately wanted to come to my debut, but it was just too quick of a turnaround, and they're all in San Diego, and I was playing in Cincy. I don't know. There wasn't a direct flight, so. But my wife and baby were there, and just the emotions that flood you after a debut. It's a lot of, I mean, especially mine was a pretty big whirlwind between waking up at 3 a.m., getting to the ballpark, pitching. And then after my outing, I got DFA'd, gave an interview at my locker, and then I'm standing out on the field with my baby and my wife, looking at, this empty ballpark that I just, fulfilled my dream in. And yeah, I cried all the way home too. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how good God was, and it's making me emotional right now just thinking about it. But yeah, I couldn't imagine that all this was, for that moment. Everything that I built my whole life on was there, and I got to share it with my family, and it's just so special. I'll never forget it.
That's incredible. And Randy, I don't know what your plans are after baseball. We're going to hear your story here on this next one, but I think your experience is going to be so valuable to so many people beyond you still toeing the rubber someday. I don't know what lays next, but I think the experiences God has given you, it's going to impact people. And I think this journey we're about to hear is going to shed some light on that.
Let's do the journey. Let's do the journey. So you took a route to the MLB that made no sense. And what we mean by that is the majority of folks that play at the level you played at were likely coming out of an SEC school, ACC school, or a high school guy. They likely were drafted in the top 3 rounds and signed for a lot of money. And they likely were rushed to the big leagues, trying to get those max years, maybe age 24, 25. And yours did not look like that. Tell us about your journey from high school to the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah. So, having been on the other side of it now, I like to condense it and call it the scenic route because it wasn't actually the straight line that you had just talked about that a lot of guys take towards the big leagues. So in high school, my junior year, I was throwing like 88, 89, getting some attention from scouts and some D1 schools. Senior year, popped my elbow in the first game of the year. End up senior year with 4 innings and a 12 ERA. All my scollies go away. We end up at Grossmont Junior College after Tommy John surgery. So I was at Grossmont for 3 years because I redshirted my first year with Tommy John and then pitched the next 2 years. Was a closer the first year, JUCO, starter the second year. Ended up with a couple scholarships here and there, but nothing really panned out. Ended up in the NAI with Missouri Baptist, small school in St. Louis, like I think 2,800 students when I was there. Pitched there for 1 year, pitched pretty well. And then thought I was going to get drafted, had some attention from a couple teams, but fell through the cracks. So I went home to San Diego, was working in a mall, working for Wetzel's Pretzels, handing out cinnamon sugar samples. Saved up enough money. I had an old college summer ball coach that had told me about independent ball. I was unaware of independent ball at the time. And so he started telling me about it. So I started looking into it. Found out there was this league in Arizona, in Yuma, that was going to play all of February in front of a bunch of independent ball managers and coaches. And that was like your shot at trying to get a contract to an independent ball team. So I went and did that, played in Yuma for a month, ended up signing with the Lake Erie Crushers of the Frontier League. I threw well for them, but because I had no pro experience, they took a guy that had a year of experience over me. So I get released. I end up back in St. Louis on my buddy's couch. And then I always bring up this specific moment because it seems to me to be a big turning point for me, because I was maxing out all my credit cards ready to come home, or so I thought. So it was a Sunday and I called my dad. I go, hey man, I got enough money or enough credit on one of these cards to make one more flight. Like, should I come home to San Diego or should I go? There's this startup league in Utica, Michigan that no one's ever heard of. Should I go try that? And God bless my dad. He had one question for me. He said, you still got any ball in you? I said, absolutely. I got a ton of ball left in me. What do you mean? I was almost offended by the question, but it was the right question. And so he was like, well, then you go to Detroit. It was almost simple for him, which kind of blows my mind even now. But so end up in Detroit. I go to the tryout for that league. I actually ended up being the draft pick. They had a draft, they had already had some guys signed to their teams before the season and before the tryout, but I had showed up to the tryout and they drafted, and I ended up being draft pick number 1 in that league in the first year of the league. And then, and over the course of that first season, a bunch of guys signed affiliate. I didn't. Ended up being pitcher of the year, which I joke is like, well, the real pitchers of the year all left. I was just the one that was still here, but still in honor. I don't want to make less of the honor. And then so I was a 2-time All-Star in that year, in that league, pitcher of the year, championship game MVP my second year because I threw a CG with 14 punchies. to
remember
win
that.
the whole thing. And then still didn't sign affiliate. So after that season, I went to the Evansville Otters in the Frontier League, pitched for a season. Our number one and number two starters get signed affiliate. So then I've kind of become the top dog, and they asked me to skip a starter in the rotation for the last month to be able to make playoffs. We ended up making playoffs. I threw like 130 something innings, and we lost. We went 0-2 barbecue in playoffs, so I was gassed, and so was everybody else. But anyway, yeah. So Frontier League, and then halfway through 19, it was actually on Father's Day, which, knowing God and knowing the comedy of that, that my dad was the one that made me continue playing baseball, and then I signed with the Reds on Father's Day. I think God was giving my dad that gift. So on Father's Day 2019, I signed with the Reds. And they tell me that they have 3 rookie ball teams and drafted light on pitching. And so what I'm hearing basically is like, we're going to have you eat innings in rookie ball, and at the end of the season, that'll probably be it for you. We'll give you a handshake.
How old were
So
you at that time, by the way, Randy?
I was 26. I was
26 in
26.
rookie ball, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So they sent me to the Appalachian League, which is no longer a thing. I think it's college summer ball now. And so, yeah, like guys like Graham Ashcraft, trying to think of who else was on that team. Like Reese Hines was on my rookie ball team, Ivan Johnson, pretty much all the Reds 2019, prospect class. And, like Reese Hines was calling me Gramps. Rightly so, you're right, because I'm 26 and he's like 18. Yeah, so one of their starting pitchers, his name was Juana Brill. He was like 5'10", but threw 98 and spinning it like 3,000 on heaters. He pinches his scap in the second inning of a game. So I come in, emergency warm up on the game mound sort of situation. And I ended up throwing 7 2/3 shutty, finished the rest of the game. But it's absolute atom ball. You guys know atom ball?
For sure. I've
I'm
experienced
giving
that
up.
firsthand.
Yeah, I'm giving up lasers right at him. First and third, laser down the third baseline. My third baseman dives, catches the ball, lands on third for a double play, sort of a game. Like that sort of thing for 7 straight innings. Like giving up hits in between there, like a lot of traffic, but somehow don't give up a run for 7+ innings. So when it's his turn in the rotation again, they gave me the ball again, asked me how many pitches I've got in me. So I tell them 95. So then we fast forward to 93 pitches later. I've thrown 8 innings and struck out 17. And the manager's shaking my hand, and I'm like not willing to because I want to finish the game. I've only thrown 8 innings, and we're on the road. And he's like, "Well, it's coming from up top." And in my head, I'm like, "Oh," like that's when it dawned on me, like, "Oh, dude, you might have changed your stars a little here. They might be looking at you a little different now." But so they kept me in the rotation. So at the end of 2019, my last 3 games were 17 punchies in 8 innings, like 8 strikeouts in 6 innings. And then my last game of the season, they moved me up to A ball, and I went 12 strikeouts in 8 innings. So and then 2019, next year's COVID, so minor leagues don't play. That's what got me kept through is my last 3 starts being 17, 8, and 12 punchies to finish. So they kind of had to see about me. There were a lot of independent ball guys they had signed that were on that team that didn't make it through COVID, especially with the restructuring of the minor league and way less teams, less players per org. A lot of the indie ball guys were first to go, but I snuck through.
Can I interject right here, Randy? And I'll let you keep going. I want everyone listening to realize this. The mindset of an indie ball guy, especially one where we were playing Randy in the USPBL, this upstart league, where, we saw a few guys get signed, but I can honestly say, probably as you were, Randy, like, I just wanted to play one game in a minor league uniform. That was it. And when guys would get signed out of that league, it's different now. They've had like 8+ big leaguers, but when guys would get signed out of that league, we would go, that's great for them. They are living the dream, playing for, the Miracle in Florida, the Twins, rookie team. That's exciting. That's all I wanted to do.
Right.
And your mindset might have been similar. I recall right about this point, I had taken like this detox from baseball. I'm preaching and pastoring now. I'm newly married, and I just kind of couldn't even watch the World Series. Jimmy's talked about that before, kind of that detox you take away from the game. And I remember going, I wonder if Randy Wynn's still playing. And that was when I was like, oh, he is still playing, and he's progressing. Like, this is crazy. There's no way this 27, 28-year-old is still progressing in this game. And just I wanted to set the scene for all those listening. Like, your story up to this point is even unbelievable, but there's so much more to come. So pick up from there.
Yeah. So make it through COVID. And so spring training in 21, they had split like who was able to be there because of the COVID rules and limited numbers and whatnot. So big leagues and AAA left before everybody else, and then AA and below showed up after they were all gone, which was awesome because I was slotted for the AA group, and we were hanging out in the big league clubhouse because everybody was gone. So that was a fun little taste, maybe a bit of foreshadowing in my life on how was I supposed to know. But so we break camp in 21, and the rotation in Chattanooga, which is AA South, it's Hunter Green, like they posted on the door in the spring training facility, and it's Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and then me. And I couldn't believe it, dude. I chalk it up to another moment in my baseball career where something happened where I couldn't believe it. But here we are again, just head spinning, going, really? Because I skipped my 27-year-old year during COVID, just hanging out, camping with my girlfriend. And then all of a sudden I'm 28. I played 1 week of low A, and I'm behind Nick Lodolo in the rotation in AA. And I couldn't imagine. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, so we go to Chattanooga, and at this point, I hadn't had any real scouting reports. You know, I'd come from indie ball where like you see the dude in the box, you know, maybe you faced him before in this league, and that's kind of how you have an idea of what he's doing. But there's no amenities, there's no info pregame. And now in AA, all of a sudden I'm getting everything, right? I'm getting reports of where this guy went to school, where he likes to hit the ball, what kind of places he likes to eat after the game. It's absurd, right? It's just so much info. And I was staring at all of it because in my head, I'm like, well, if I was good before without knowing any of this stuff, then I must be even better knowing it, right? So I'm digging in on these scouting reports. I'm knowing everything about these guys before I get in these games. And I remember standing on the mound thinking like, well, I can't throw it to that part of the plate because I've seen him hit videos of him just destroying any baseball that comes into that part of the plate. And, you know, I can't do this and I can't do that. And I'm basically standing up on the mound on my heels, throwing like I barely have a chance, like in my own mind, because I know how good these guys are. And that results in me at around the All-Star break having like over an 80 ERA, I believe. To the point where like things were going so bad, every ball I threw over the plate was a barrel. It felt like even in my first AA start, I gave up 3 homers. So it's like game 1 of the season, Hunter goes 5 shutty. Game 2 of the season, Lodolo goes 6 shutty. Game 3 of the season, I go 4, give up 7 on 3 homers. You know, so I'm like, imposter syndrome doesn't even begin to describe it, right? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing there. You know, so fast forward to the All-Star break, I've got an 8+. And I'm basically like, well, you know what? This is probably going to be it for you. This is the nicest level of ballparks you'll see. You had a good run. This was fun, but you're clearly not up to the task here. So just start smelling the roses. You know what I mean? Like the hammer's coming down any day now. You know, like someone's going to release. They have to. You suck. Right? Like I just couldn't imagine them keeping me. But so I did a couple things in that moment that were actually really consequential and good. I went and found a catcher that was, you know, he rubbed some guys wrong, but I understood him to be brutally honest. And so I started playing catch with him every single day. And I asked him to be honest with what he was seeing out of my hand every single day. And for a couple weeks, it was like, that was terrible. That's not good. That doesn't play. It was a whole lot of that for like straight up a couple weeks. And then finally one day in Pensacola, he goes, that was nasty. And I'm just throwing a sinker or whatever. But he goes, no, that was it. And I'm like, don't blow smoke up my backside, dude. Like, you haven't said a nice thing to me in weeks. It's been almost a month. And he's like, no, no, no. Like, and so I tried the same cue that I had been thinking. And that day it was something like, I need to drop as hard as I can and reach as far as I can. And he was just going, yeah, dude, that's it. And then I'd try the slider. And he goes, that's it. He's like, do it. I go, okay. And they trusted me so little at this point that they had me wedged in between piggybacking starting pitchers for this game. Um, so starter goes four. I threw the fifth, and then another starter came in behind me and finished the game because they knew that when I came in, it was a fireworks show. But so this day I go in there and I'm sitting 92, 93, which I'm usually like a 88 to 92 guy. So I'm sitting at the higher end of my velo, and I strike out the side. And I come off the field, and my manager, Ricky Gutierrez, who was a big leaguer for like 10 years with the Astros and Padres, he goes, "You wear that headband every day?" And I was like, "I mean, not every day." He's like, "Wear it every stinking day." I was like, "Okay." So then pretty quickly after that, he had me being the leverage guy out of the pen for some reason. So like game on the line, like you need a bridge guy. It was me. So I pitched like 2 out of 3 days in a row. I was, typical bullpen work, like for a guy that was kind of working his way out of the doghouse. And then eventually I got myself all the way back into the starting rotation to the point where I finished Double A. I was pitcher of the month in September for Double A South for the whole league. And I got my ERA down under a 5. And that was good enough to keep me for the next season. So, and then 22 on through last season, I was in Triple A. All of 22, I was a starter. Didn't get a sniff in the big leagues in a year when I had 93 teammates in Louisville and there was 60 something Cincinnati Reds with like 20 something debuts, and I couldn't crack it. So there was a little bit of doubt there, a little bit more imposter syndrome. It seems like every level of the way I was having some imposter syndrome. Luckily there's not a level behind the big league, so I think I've cleaned that up in my own mental now. But yeah, man. So 22, no sniff, and then 23, it was almost like a repeat of Double A. Like I was in the pen, I was like long relief, 6 starter sort of situation, and I had like a 6 something by the All-Star break, and they called me up. And I get my debut against the Braves, and I threw 2 shitty against the Braves, and I always hang my hat on. I got a positive WAR, 0.1. There's a lot of guys that play that don't have a positive WAR, so I'll take it. But yeah, so that's. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Double A in this version of the story, but 23 is the debut against the Braves, and then 24, I had, I think, a sub 2 ERA right around the All-Star break. No big league for 24, and then 25 on Easter. I got a save in the big leagues against Baltimore. So, I mean, if God wasn't trying to tell me that he was part of this story, I mean, that really just has to cap it off, doesn't it?
So you're still going, right?
I am, yeah. So this off season has actually been a bit of a whirlwind for me in the way that so I hadn't pitched a healthy pitch since the All-Star break last year. I was in the bigs in April. They sent me back down. I had honestly been pitching in pain for probably over a year. Didn't realize what was going on, just kind of knew that stuff was still coming out and might as well keep going. But it was messing with my mental a little bit, just knowing that every day I had to go in and deal with a half hour worth of pain just to get back to normal. And then I had to do all my work, and then I had to do a bunch after just to make sure my elbow was going to be there for tomorrow. I had the Reds MRI me, and they told me nothing was wrong, which was not what I wanted to hear with how I was feeling. But basically they said, you've got a 13-year-old Tommy John and you're running out of cartilage. You really don't have any cartilage left. You're pretty much bone on bone in certain positions. I was like, well, that explains a lot with how I'm feeling. Eventually the velo went down. So this off season, I had already signed up to play in the DR. So I went down there and gave it my best, but they thought I was still hurt. And the velo was, not where it needed to be. It was, 86 to 88, like my best bullets. So I came home after that and was pretty much, I was talking to my wife. I was like, I think that's it. Like, I don't know I mean, besides, God doing something big in my life, I can't imagine regrowing cartilage. Like the old school way of thinking medically was that cartilage doesn't repair, you know. Um, so then I end up going into the facility and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna give this one more go. I train at Cutter Nation in San Diego. And so I went in there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do everything I can to hit 90 as quickly as I can. And if I can't do it, then I'm done. And if I can do it, but it hurts like crazy and it doesn't seem sustainable for a whole season, then I'm done. Um, my wife heard that and heard I'm done and was ready for that part. But I don't blame her. We have two kids, two small kids. So, but then I end up talking to a buddy of mine who he was with the Athletics. He's bounced around this year. He landed on the Dodgers. I think he's in AAA right now. But he had told me that he had the same exact symptoms that I had had and had been playing in the big leagues for the last 2 years. And it blew my mind. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, that's not a problem. Just get this one shot. So he informs me about hyaluronic acid shots. Um, and hyaluronic acid is like a sugar molecule. It's the thing that keeps your eye wet. And it's the geometry of it is amazing at holding water. So it's a hydrator. Um, so I find out about it. I shop around doctors in San Diego for like a month and everybody's telling me that they can do hips and knees. Why would you want to do an elbow? And I go, you're not my doc if that's the question. So I end up driving out to Arizona where all the baseball spring training, MLB docs are. And I get my elbow shot up with some hyaluronic acid. And for a week, it was stiff and painful. And around day 6, I started getting full range of motion back. And dude, by a week and a half after the shot, I felt like 5 years younger in my arm. I compare it to like people that say they get LASIK and they're like, I didn't know I could see the leaves on the trees from that far away. Dude, I was like, I didn't know you guys weren't feeling pain in your elbow when you did this. It's like, it had been years since I had not felt something. So yeah, that I got the fire burning again. And then and my agent had been pushing for me to keep playing. Of course, that's his prerogative. That's what he was like. There's still some teams that want to see what you got. So here we are. And then I picked Tijuana because growing up in San Diego, that's right next door. So I get to stay living at home. The family gets to stay set up a little more than they do typically when we travel. So, yeah, all in God's time, and it's all been panning out and working out. Can't be happier about how everything's landed. So, and the Toros have been great, man. We got a real shot to win it all here. The management and the team that we have is it's really good. I think we'd be a really good international league team, if not competing at maybe the low levels of the big leagues. It's the real deal over here. So I'm impressed.
Randy, when you came and spoke to our players last summer, I was super convicted by everything you said because at the end of my playing career in 2018, I thought I was going to get drafted. A lot of the same things that you said. I'm an 88 to 92 guy. I spin it really well, but I don't know if anybody wants that. And the phone actually rang. Justin that runs the USPBL up there. I remember just watching the phone ring and I didn't pick it up. And I was like, nobody actually goes to indie ball and gets a real shot through affiliated ball. I'm going to go there for a couple months. I'll probably finish off my elbow. Maybe I'll get to play one game like Hunter's talking about for like the White Sox rookie team, and then they'll ask me. And then COVID happened a couple of years after that, and I was seeing most of the guys that I knew through my journey get axed. And I was like, well, see, if I had done it and even been in affiliated ball, I would have got chopped with COVID anyway. And, like, you checked every box of, well, I made it through this and I made it through that. So your ability to battle adversity and just keep moving forward, just know, man, like, you got a fan from me just because all of the reasons that I was like, that wouldn't have worked, you overcame all of them.
This next question is just right on par with the direction right now. And your journey, by the way, those listening at home, I think Randy could probably start his own podcast and just tell stories. I love hearing him talk. And you can't rush a 10-year Major League Baseball journey. In this episode, we want it to be geared towards high schoolers or college guys that are facing some of the same adversity. And as we all look back on our careers, we all have decisions to make. We have these vital moments in our careers and our lives because, that's what baseball's teaching us is really how to do life well. There had to be at least one moment in your career where you go, this is it. I'm hanging the cleats up. I know you've mentioned a few. What was the most pivotal moment, whether it be in 2016 there in Missouri before the USPBL, or whether it be during the COVID shutdown? What was the most pivotal moment where there was not many dollars in the bank account? You had a girlfriend, wife, fiance, whatever she was at the time, and then you go, this has been fun. This is it for me.
Yeah, man, it happened honestly throughout the journey. Um, I was lucky enough to value how much I loved it. Um, and I didn't really care about the route. A lot of guys get obsessed with, I need to be D1, I need to be a high round draft pick. All that I knew is that everywhere I had been, there were a stretch where I dominated. And I couldn't imagine, like, I just needed to see if there was a level that, like, me and my dominant stretch couldn't handle those hitters. I needed to see. So, like, for me, it just always came down to who's going to stop me. Like, in my own head, that version of me was a big leaguer, and I needed someone to prove me otherwise. And so the rest of my career was basically just me trying to figure out if that was true and just stick around long enough to get the opportunity to prove it, or to see, not even to prove that I was a big leaguer, just to kind of see if I was, it was never going to be satisfying for me to put it down, knowing that I was dominating where I was at. I always understood I wasn't exactly the sexiest prospect, but I didn't really care because I understood what I was doing to hitters when I was at my best. And so there was doubts every step of the way, but it never had to do with ball. It always had to do with the situations outside of baseball and the things that I watched teammates that were harder working than me, more talented than me, smarter than me, they gave up. It wasn't because they weren't good enough. They didn't want to grind anymore. They didn't want to not get paid anything anymore. They found a nice off-season job where they were making some decent money, didn't want to go back to being broke. I made conscious decisions. Like when I was in San Diego in the off-season, I worked as a unskilled laborer for construction contractors. So like I did tile and grout one off-season. I did granite countertops one off-season. And it sucked so bad that by the time summer came around, I was begging to play ball. I was begging to be broke in the Midwest, just playing ball again. So I think that was part of it, man, is that I didn't just make decisions during the season for baseball. Like no matter what time of year it was, I was thinking about ball. Like I couldn't wait to get back to it because I decided to do something really crummy, just demanding, everything has its own work it needs, but mixing up buckets of mud for a guy that's laying tile isn't exactly the thing I was passionate about. More power to you if that gets you going. But for me, it was miserable. So, but I don't discount that as being a big part of what carried me through. So to answer your question, there was always doubts, but there was also, I needed to see if anyone could handle the best of me when I was on the mound, and that kept me wanting to try.
I wish we could bottle whatever edge, grit, competitiveness, drive, however you want to say it, whatever you're made out of, man. I wish we could pass it around to the high school kids we train and just instill that willingness to go through challenging things without looking for an off ramp somewhere. Just go right through it.
Yeah, and
can I say one thing about that?
Go ahead, brother. Go for it.
Well, I just want to say, people think that when they're imagining the grass being greener in whatever version of life that is, you never really imagine the stressful part of that life. But the way I understand it is there's no life without stress. So what I did was I chose the stresses with the life that I wanted. I understood that there was stress as a part of that. And so I picked my problems. I picked being poor. I picked being a minor league grinder. I picked the bus rides. because I knew that even if I had been living my quote unquote ideal life, whatever the heck that would have been, that if it wasn't baseball, right? Like there's still stress. Like there's always another side of the thing that you aren't seeing right now. Like you just want the good thing or whatever you perceive as good. But there's also another side of it where you're going to be dealing with things you didn't realize. You know, everyone wants all the money, but then they don't realize it's stressful trying to manage that or trying to be responsible with it or trying to be godly with it. You know, so for me, I was just picking the correct versions of stress. I accepted the stress in the path of life that I had chosen. It was all okay with me. So just to add that again.
Absolutely. And that's so true. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about conversations me and Jimmy are having right now about our lives, our business, our families. And one thing I want to bring to the attention of those listening is at every level it's different. You know, Randy has been a professional since 2016. So 10 years professional baseball. That level is different. There's a way that guys carry themselves that you can't get to that level unless you do these certain things or you have these skills. I remember hitting a home run in spring training for the Sioux City Explorers, and I took my helmet off to cross home plate, and I thought everyone would be happy for me. And Dean Green, who played for a number of years with the Tigers organization, said, "We keep our helmets on here, buddy." Oh, okay, we keep our helmets on here. And then you go back, you backtrack to the college level, and if you're going to be good and successful in college, you're a different guy. You're a different guy. We work with 16 to 18-year-olds often, and the reason we're really honing in on this question is just what you described, picking your own problems, understanding that there's stress everywhere. We believe, and we talk about it often, we try to teach our guys, the generation, and I don't want to be the old man on the porch, but the generation, as Jimmy said, there's always an off-ramp. There's another school that's going to treat me better. There's another summer team that's going to treat me better. I just had a conversation. I've not responded, but a young man playing college baseball, and he's been at this particular place for 8 months now. He's about to finish out his freshman year, and he wants out. He wants to go somewhere else. And I've not responded yet, but I think this conversation is going to help me at what I'm going to respond. We are trying to teach our guys actively. He talked about that edge. And we always say, where is the edge at? You know, that edginess that you just described. You know, one day baseball will be over for Randy Wynne. One day baseball is over for Hunter Wood and Jimmy Keating. Baseball will be over for all these young men that are chasing this dream. We want to instill in them, though, it is more than just posting a commitment graphic. The work has just begun. And without that edge, you're going to be a subpar father. You're going to be a subpar husband. You're going to be a subpar employee. And this college baseball dream, once you post that graphic, you're going to so-and-so, the work just begins, and there are guys there, as Jamie Teshoff said, one of our last episodes, will shove you in a locker on day one if you're not serious about this thing. So that part was super helpful, and that's the grinder mentality that we were super excited about bringing out here. So maybe last question here, just based on time. So we deal, like I said, with 16 and 18-year-olds, and they could have colleges begging them to come play for them, or they could have none. In your journey, it seems the only person who believed you could achieve this dream was you. And I'm a friend of yours, but I kept checking my phone every 2 weeks and saying, is Randy still going? Is Randy still going? So how do you maintain this belief in yourself when there is no validation? So as the landscape has changed in college baseball, the fact that a high school guy playing Division I baseball in our area, it's becoming more slim and more slim and more slim. So no D1s blowing up your phone, no draft coverage, no affiliated teams. How would you advise the 16 or 8-year-old to deal with, you have no attention, you have to go get it? How would you address that with an 18-year-old today?
Honest self-evaluation, because there's a reason I was never a sexy prospect, right? Part of it, I think, is because you have to see me throw for a full season before you realize that, like, he's putting up a body of work here. You know, it's not like I see him in a bullpen and I'm impressed. So I understood that. It took me a couple of years of indie ball before I really understood that that's what makes me a good prospect, is that you see me throw for years. But that's why I had to play indie ball. It was because I had to establish that, like, I'm here for 100 innings a year. and you're going to get them out of me. I'm available, and then you're going to get strikes no matter what point in the season it is, no matter what point in the game it is. Like, I'm going to be usable, and I'm going to be valuable in the direction of winning ball games. If you can make yourself valuable in the direction of winning ball games, coaches love you. If you can get that to be your priority over whatever selfish ERA goals you have or win goals for the year or whatever. Well, I think winning should be the metric. Because what I do when I align my priorities with winning games is I align myself with the owner, the GM, the manager, the assistant coach, everybody quote unquote above me, or I really see baseball as a group project where we win a championship and I get better at the end. If you can bring that attitude every single day, that I'm here, we're all in this group project. Now, I had to, along the way, figure out how to keep doing the things that got me paid without getting lost in development, without getting down in the weeds, trying to figure out something that wasn't me, that you want to be able to grow, right? You don't want to stifle your own growth, but you don't want to lose what got you there in the first place. So I came up with specific plans on different off seasons. I would assess my season, identify a problem, and then solve the problem, or attempt to solve it. And that was one of them for me, was trying to figure out, shoot, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Where was I going with that?
Belief in yourself was the question. We can edit all this out, by the way, and we will. So we'll make it sound seamless. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was on a good one right there, and I kind of lost where I was going with it.
You're developing plans for yourself. You're betting on yourself. That was kind of where you were going.
Oh, I needed to understand self-evaluation. So I realized that the things that they were seeing weren't super attractive because analytics baseball was coming, and high velos were becoming more and more attractive. But I understood that there was a place for guys like me. That's the beauty of baseball, is you see Justin Pedroia, you see a Greg Maddux, right? Like, you see the guys that aren't necessarily physically daunting, that are still able to dominate this game. And so because I had those good examples from the past, I knew that that was something that I could do. But I also understood that it wasn't going to be super attractive to anybody, like I said, like in a single bullpen. It was going to be something I had to prove over years. And so I did my best to be the available guy, just to fill all those slots. And then when I prioritize winning games and line that up with everybody above me that also wants to win games, I get to give myself some clemency. Like, let's say I threw 8 innings in a game, I get clipped 6 solo shots, but we're winning 6 or 7-6 when I come out of the game. We end up winning the game 7-6. I'm going back in the clubhouse and I'm celebrating with the boys. Why? Because I didn't get in the way of winning today. The whole point is to win the game. And so if I didn't get, and I could have, if I was having a day where I got clipped 6 times, I easily could have gotten in the way, right? I could have done enough to make us lose, but I didn't, not today. So thank God that my bad day landed on the hitter's good day and we get to walk away with a dub, right? And that doesn't mean I go into my next bullpen thinking everything's peachy, right? I have some stuff to work on, clearly. But if I throw 8 shutty and get clipped in the 9th and we lose 1-0, there's no beer after that game. I'm upset, right? So when you make that the metric, you get to be part of the teams. You get to root for your boys when you're out of the game. You get to it makes you a better teammate. It makes you a better guy. It makes you a better player under the manager. It keeps your head out of your own butt a little bit too. It's not about you. If you're in an organized team, the point is to win a championship. The only way I know how to do that is by winning games. So if I'm not contributing to winning games, and this goes to every ball player, all those high school guys that you talk to, your value as a ball player is your value to contributing to wins. If you're not doing that, the coach isn't putting you in. So if you're not playing much, there's a reason. It's because he doesn't think that you can contribute to winning games. If you're going in and you're only, every time you're down by a lot, right? Like, we all know the scale as a pitcher, right? Like, You're out at coach's good graces. I'm only pitching when we're down by a lot. I start pitching a little better. I'm pitching in closer games, but we're still losing. And then I keep pitching well. I'm pitching in winning games, but when we're up by a lot. And then if I can handle that responsibly, now he's putting me in spots where the game's on the line, right? And then eventually you're just the ace of the club and you're the stopper. And when you pitch, you're expected to win, right? There are levels to this. So every pitcher lands on that scale somewhere for every, like, professional on all the way down. That's how it goes. So be honest with yourself. Identify where your coaches see you, and it'll be obvious by how they're using you, right? If you're not pitching and winning in games when you're winning, you have something to figure out. You have work to do, even if it's just convincing the coach that you're reliable. Even if your stuff is there and you feel powerful and you feel good and whatever, for some reason, coach doesn't think that you're the guy when we win. I bet you it has something to do with throwing strikes or not getting the ball to the backstop when runners in scoring position or not being able to hold runners in tight games. There's something there for you to get, right? So it's easy to identify. And if you're not the dude yet, like I told you in AA, I was getting hidden between two piggybacking starters. I understood in the moment, in real time, that this wasn't trust, right? So, if you're having trouble, I don't think that the answer is to go to a new school, because the odds are, unless you're going to a team where no one can do anything reliably, you're not going to be the dude there either. Because the things that you do on the baseball field dictate what situations you get put into, so assess yourself honestly, and have some court awareness, have some understanding about how coaches want to use guys and why they would use guys in certain spots over other guys. If you can figure that out, then you see where you sit, and you never even have to ask the manager.
Right.
He tells you by how he's using you, and it's obvious. Yeah. And then, when you find yourself in winning games, you can kind of, walk around like it don't stink a little bit, right? And then when you're the ace, you better walk around like that, but you better get the job done when you better be the stopper, so, and that's all just fun, man. When you get to that level, it's because and don't get it twisted. I've been at literally every single spot I just described over the years, on different teams. So if you find yourself in a spot where it doesn't taste real good right now, it's okay. I never started as the ace on any team I was on. I was almost always long relief, back end, fifth starter, sixth starter. But there were not every team I was on, but some teams I ended up the ace. So that's the beautiful thing about baseball is you play a lot. And so you get a lot of chances to change your stars. And if I'm any living proof that you can change your stars, I'm 6'1", 185, 190, not very physically imposing, don't throw very hard, right? Like, there's a whole lot of reasons why I'm, player X, stock righty, whatever on MLB The Show, but I understood how to navigate baseball. I understood the game. I had some court awareness for being on a team. And I think those things, along with just loving it, man, just loving it every day, just being with the boys, playing catch. I still can't wipe the smile off my face from playing catch. They're giving me money to play catch. I'm supporting a family of 4. I'm playing catch, and it blows my mind every day. Thank God. So
I'm hearing, I'm hearing honesty with yourself. I think that's probably a big one. Honest with yourself, going and getting it. Randy, your story has once again been an inspiration to me, and I hope all the listeners as well. And I'm going to close out here, but before we get out of here, if you found value in today's episode and you're serious about improving your journey, we want to invite you to step into the Dugout. The Dugout is the K-Zone Baseball Development's online community built for players, parents, and coaches who want real guidance through the baseball development process. So when you join the Dugout, you'll get direct access to Jimmy and myself, where you can ask questions anytime. You'll also be able to lock in rates for our services and training for lifetime, and you'll receive exclusive video and content from us covering all kinds of topics. So it's a place where you can stop guessing and start having a clear plan of attack. If that sounds like something you need, head over to KZoneBaseballDevelopment.com/dugout and join the community. for just $11.99 a month. It might be the best investment you make chasing this dream. Randy Wynne, big leaguer, friend of mine, grinder, husband, father, all those things. We want to thank you again for your time and your story. It's been super helpful. Thanks, and you're welcome back anytime, brother.
Jimmy, Hunter, it has been an absolute honor. You guys are friends of mine, and I appreciate everything. Thanks for having me on.
Until next time, this is K-Zone Baseball Development. Remember that Christ is King, baseball is just a game, and work works.